Hey guys, Collin Chi, certified nutritional consultant, numerologer, bringing you guys another talk today. Today, I'm going to be bringing you guys the complete numerology chart of Soren Aabye Kierkegaard. Okay, it's difficult to pronounce that name in his native Danish tongue. This was a Danish philosopher in the 1800s who is considered the father of existentialism. Okay, existentialism is all about basically existence precedes essence. So what that means is that we aren't really born with any particular nature or any particular essence. We have to create that essence and create ourselves in life. We're not born with this natural self that we come in with. We're more born with a blank slate, and it's completely up to us to choose to become and to take action to become who we want to become in life, and take whatever path we want to take. So existence precedes essence. Okay, the father of existentialism. Okay, he wrote a lot about personal choice and freedom and free will and commitment. He was also a very religious Christian, although he wrote about things against traditional Christendom, he called it. But he was all about trying to be a real Christian with a personal relationship with God. So we're going to go through his numerology chart. This is going to give you guys an idea of what a chart would be like for you if you were to do a chart. I'm going to go through most all of his numbers. Not absolutely everything, but quite a few numbers, and give you some real insight into this famous philosopher who laid the groundwork for and the ideas for existentialism, who was then followed by Jean-Paul Sartre, who really carried on his legacy and wrote even more about existentialism, among others. So let's get into it, folks, all right? Soren Aabye or Aabye Kierkegaard. Okay. Today is 3/24/2016, which is a number 6 day. If you just take this part. So, here we go. 1, 6, 9, 5, 5, 1, 1, 2, 7, 5, 2, 9, 5, 9, 2, 5, 7, 7, 7, 1, 1, 9, 4. Okay, Kierkegaard actually means churchyard. Apparently, his family took care of the church land at some point in their existence. So let's start here with the destiny number of Mr. Kierkegaard. And this is equivalent to, which adding up the name, this is equivalent to a number 6. Okay? Hopefully you can see that. Number 6, destiny number. Okay, this is the number that this is basically what your soul set out to accomplish before leaving Earth. Okay, so in Kierkegaard's case, his destiny number is number 6. That's all about home, family, responsibility, service, among other things. Okay, so number 6 is the caretaker. It is ruled by Venus. It's on the mental plane, the mind plane, but being ruled by Venus, it's all about home, family, responsibility, service, taking care of other people, responsibility to your family. These people are creative and they're thinkers, but their creativity often gets turned towards their home life. They are imaginative. They are good judges. They're very ethical. Kierkegaard wrote a lot about religion and ethics. So he has this destiny to be, the family man, to be, or if you just think about Venusian qualities, art and poetry and beauty and feeling and things like this. Even though it's more of a mental vibration, it still has this Venus kind of quality. And now Kierkegaard is a Taurus, Taurus sun, Leo ascendant, Cancer moon, and Taurus midheaven. He's also Scorpio imam coeli. So Taurus is ruled by Venus. So immediately we see the Taurus here with the Venus with number 6. Interesting stuff. Let's do the life path, which is, he was born 5/5/1813, which is 5, 5, and 4, which is equal to a number 5. Number 5, life path number. This is also called the learning lesson. So, the life path is all about the path you walk or the style you live, the path you're going to walk through life. So, number 5, this is interesting, because he also has number 1 and number 5 are his hidden passions, because they're the most repeated numbers in his actual name. So we see a 5 again there. We see a couple 5s here in the actual birth date, and then we see a number 5 life path. Now this is interesting because he's got a few number 5s here, which I'm going to show you. And number 5 is perfect and very interesting for him because he wrote all he wrote about was choice and commitment, and free will and freedom of choice, that we have the ultimate freedom to choose what to do with our lives, and that we should make choices. Otherwise, we just go along with the herd and go along with the crowd, and we can't become authentic human beings if we don't make choices based on our own free will. So number 5 is all about freedom, travel, change, choice. The reason it's major about choice is because it's in the very middle of the sequence of numbers 1 through 9. So being in the middle, it can see both sides of situations, and especially in like your personal years, when you hit a number 5 personal year, that's kind of a transition number. You're basically going to figure out and decide what you're going to do for the next 4 years, or the next basically the next 4 years of that sequence of the full 9 years. So it's 1 through 9. You have personal years go 1 through 9. And if you're a number 5 this year, you're going to decide what's going to happen for the next 4 years, and then you finish that cycle of 9 years when you hit a number 9 personal year, and then you start over. Then you start with the number 1 personal year, then you're number 2 personal year, then you're number 3. But when you hit the middle, because 5 is right in the middle of the sequence, there's 4 numbers preceding it and 4 numbers after it. It's right in the middle. It's kind of like Libra, Virgo, and 5 is actually ruled by Mercury, which is Virgo. Because it's right in the middle, it sees both sides, and it has to now determine where it's going to go for the rest of this 9-year cycle. So very much about choice. Number 5 is freedom, travel, change. They can be very indecisive because they're in the middle, and then because they can see both sides. They can be hyperactive. They are ruled by Mercury, so writing, speaking, acting is associated with number 5. Kierkegaard went to his whole life was basically lived going to the theater, being cloistered in his house writing, and occasionally taking walks out in the streets, which number 5 actually needs a lot of time in nature and walking in order to kind of soothe their nerves. They can be nervy, they can be fidgety, they can be restless, they can be hyperactive, but they can also be very passionate, sensitive, intuitive, very much about sensitive expression of the emotions. Number 5 is on the emotional plane. So you have the emotions, you have the mind, and then you have the emotions here. It's also it's just a really interesting number for Kierkegaard because of all these qualities, especially passion. He wrote a lot about passion, and he believed more in not necessarily that it doesn't necessarily matter as much what choice you make, but the fervor or the passion with which you make that choice. Okay, he wrote extensively about that, and that passion was important. And to him, truth was subjectivity as opposed to objectivity. Truth was all about your own subjective experiences. So he was an interesting guy. Number 5 can be a researcher. They can be an investigator. They can be procrastinating. They can be impatient, like I said. Rebellious. They are often fortunate, and they're also good with babies. They have this kind of quality almost like the number 3, where they kind of go in every direction, and they need to stick to their choices. So it's a very challenging number with choice. It's because you don't know which way to go because you're right in the middle of everything. You're right in the middle of all the energies. So you have this side, and you also have this side to choose from. Which way do I go? It's also associated with the 5 senses. Okay, 5 senses are huge for Kierkegaard because Taurus is sensual. Taurus is an earth sign. All earth signs are somewhat sensual. He has 2 Tauruses going on here with his midheaven and with his sun sign. Tauruses are all about pleasure and feeling and senses and beauty and art and affection and love and things like this because they're ruled by Venus. They're also stable, and they're also actually patient. Number 6 is a patient number. Number 5 is not necessarily a patient number because number 6 is ruled by Venus. So Venus is patient. They're somewhat stable. Number 5 is not as patient, not as stable. It kind of goes all over the place. But interesting because the 5 senses, Kierkegaard, in his student life, he became an aesthete. Okay, basically he's a guy that just lives for pure pleasure for a while, and this was a stage in his life where he was just seeking pleasure and going out for sexual experiences and partying and drinking and just living for pure pleasure. And eventually he found that this life was completely empty and wrote a lot about it. It was a big part of his turning point and turning towards writing, among other things. Now, choices were a big challenge for him, too, because he actually broke off a major relationship with Regine Olsen, who he got engaged with, and then he changed his mind and decided, no, I'm not going to go with this relationship, and he ended up just being this cloistered writer and used her as his muse in a way, and what could have been. Number 5 is very versatile and very adaptable, a lot of variety. They have a lot of variety, number 5. So he actually wrote with many different masks. He published pseudonymously with pseudonyms, which are fake names, and which was common in the time. But he wrote about all these different characters from these different perspectives, a very rich variety of characters in his writing. And then he left it up to the reader to choose what these, which of these characters was in the right. So a lot of choice in his writing, a lot of those themes. So let's get into his soul urge. Soul urge number, which is derived from the vowels of the name. Now this depends on whether you use Y as a vowel or as a consonant. If you use it, and I'm not sure how it works in the Danish-speaking language, I believe it's a consonant, but I'm going to show you both of them. So, which, if you take the vowels and you use Y, if you use Y as a consonant, then his soul urge is equivalent to a number 3. Okay. If you don't use Y as a consonant and you use it as a vowel, his soul urge is equal to a number 1. Okay, we saw the 1 up here. But let's use 3 because I think that's going to be correct here. But I want you to think about that influence of the 1 too. So 3 is all about creativity, communication, intellect. Okay, the thinker, the analyzer. It's ruled by Jupiter, so they're very sociable. They can be witty. They are creative. They are very childlike in some ways. This was his soul urge. Okay, the soul urge number is your hidden motivation. Okay, this was his hidden motivation, to be creative, to express himself. Number 3 is all about expression. Number 5 very much craves sensitive expression as well. Number 1 also craves a lot of self-expression. Expressing yourself, witty, communicative, sociable, adaptable. Number 3 is another mental number on the mental plane. Number 1 is on the physical plane. Okay, number 3, very much logical, analyzing, thinking. You know, he was actually described as witty as a child, so that makes some sense. Number 3 is kind of like Gemini in astrology, but it also has some other influences. Number 3 is very adaptable, as I said. It goes in every direction. It's kind of scattered as a number. But you know, very much an intellectual kind of number. Impatient and intolerant. They can have somewhat of a high horse and think they're better than other people sometimes. But very creative, very scattered, very expanding and going in every direction. So you could see that he was a very creative mind, definitely, and a very thinking kind of person, of course. You know, very intellectual guy. Jupiter is associated with philosophy in astrology, so you know, you could see. I mean, he's the existentialist. That's a philosopher. You know, Danish philosopher. So that's interesting. Then we go into his personality number, which you use the consonants of the name. Which, if you use Y as a consonant, then his personality number is equal to a number 33, which is a master number, which can translate to a number 6. If you don't use Y as a consonant, if you use it as a vowel, it's equal to a number 5. So again, you see the 5 and the 1 a lot here already, if you were to use that in a different way. But you also see a lot of 6 and 3 here, a lot of mental and emotional stuff going on. So, but I'm going to use number 33, which is basically a more intense number 6. Okay, master numbers are a higher vibration. They are more challenged in life. It's required to live up to a higher standard. You're required to be a little more humanitarian. Okay, number 6 is all about service, a humanitarian to some degree. Okay, so a more intense number 6, you know, again, service, family, home, domesticated. You're the judge. You're very ethical. You're very fair. You're patient. You're tolerant. You're compassionate as a number 6 and number 33. Sorry, I have this bad cough that won't go away. So, you know, home, family, service. You know, he was, I think, the 7th of 7 children. Only 2 of them survived past the age of like 30. Him and one of his brothers. You know, there was thought that there was a curse upon his family because his father went up to a top of a hill when he was younger and cursed God. They were very, very religious, very deeply religious, Moravian kind of religious, and Lutheran kind of religious Christians, that, you know, he didn't think he was going to live a very long life because of this, because his dad said there was a curse upon the family, and that's why all his children died, you know, very young and would not survive him. But Kierkegaard and one of his brothers out-survived his father. But anyway, so he did have these urges and this personality for family, for home. That's why he almost married, you know, Regina Olsen. He almost went that way, but then he decided, no, I'm going to go my own path. I'm going to be, you know, I'm going to be the writer. I'm going to do my own thing. And, you know, I meant to do these other things. But he had trouble deciding what to do with his life. Again, number 5 with the indecision. But, again, remember the influence of the 5 and the 1 here. More 5 here, if you look at it that way. More indecisiveness, more 5 senses. You know, these people can be addiction prone. Taurus is the 5 senses. It's sensual. They want to live that aesthetic life. You see some influence there. You see him want his destiny maybe going in his own direction, which really was a bigger destiny, I think, than or not his destiny, sorry, his hidden motivation to be a number 1, to be an individual. Number 1 is independence, individual, ego, do your own thing, self-expression, it's action, it's will. Kierkegaard wrote a lot about will as well, and action, energy, assertiveness, aggressiveness, courage, risk-taking, pioneering, initiating. He was the pioneer for existentialism in a lot of ways. Okay, his hidden motivation, if you take it as a number 1. So, interesting. Number 1 is ruled by the Sun. Number 5, Mercury. Again, number 6, Venus. Number 3, Jupiter. So, number 33, you know, again, we'll just say service. Okay, family. Creativity, responsibility. Okay. Now let's go over to his Pythagorean birth chart. Okay. Hopefully you can see that. So you use the birth date for this. Looks like we got 2 5s here in the birth date. We got 2 1s. We got an 8 here. And we got 3. So, mostly have the emotional plane here going on. Because this is the emotional plane, this is the mental plane, this is the physical, practical doing plane. Mainly on the emotional plane as far as his birth date goes. You have the double 5, you have the double 1. Okay, the double 5, he doesn't really have any arrows of individuality here. No major arrows here. But the double 5 indicates intensity, drive, okay, enthusiasm. They also need to work on controlling their emotions, the double 5. They need to make sure that they settle their stomach and settle their emotions before they sit down to eat. Otherwise, they can have digestive issues of the solar plexus region. So, double 5, watch out for digestive issues. Make sure you drink some chamomile tea or, do some digestive stuff, maybe some ginger or cinnamon or fennel or other digestive things. With the number 11, you see humanitarian. You see both sides of situations with the double 1 here. Okay? I'll try and write a little bigger from here on out so you can see better. But You definitely see that there. That's interesting. You know, with his south node is actually Aquarius, and his north node is Leo. South node is considered what's been overdeveloped in past lives, what you already have a natural, overdevelopment of it in a past life. Which would be, if it's Aquarius, that is the humanitarian. Okay, that is the eccentric guy. That is, independent, very independent person, very progressive, very scientific. It's associated with I know. So, interesting. See that humanitarian in there. What else can we do here? Let's do the day number, which is derived from the day of your birth, which is a number 5. Okay, day number. Okay, these are his 4 core numbers. Okay, sorry, I didn't write here the personality number. This is the personality number. This is how you come off socially. Okay, number 33. Okay, this is your hidden motivation. Okay, this is your gift or your talent. Okay, the day number is your gift or your talent. So number 5, his core numbers. Okay, let's put them up here. His core numbers are actually 5. Okay, the life path is the main one. Makes up 40% of you. Destiny is the second most important. So you got a 5 and a 6. That's 30% of you. Then you got the soul urge. That's 20% of you, which is a 3, or you could see it as a 1. And then you got the day number is the 4th core number, which is another number 5. So again, we see a lot of 5 going on here. Okay, it was his hidden passion as well. 5 is huge for this guy. Okay, freedom, travel, change. He freed minds. He wrote a lot about freedom, free will. The whole thing was that that we're ultimately free to choose who we want to become. Okay, there's not really any major restriction, and that that choice is important. That it's it should be a task in life to create yourself and to choose your destiny and to choose who you want to become. Okay, you can see why he was so obsessed with choice with this number 5, because number 5 is all about choice. They can be creative. It's the writer, it's the speaker. He was obviously a voracious writer. Within a span of 4 years, he published 7 books. Okay, so pretty huge. Now, freedom, travel, and change. Travel can be mental or physical. Okay, physically you can go travel, or mentally you can travel into all these different experiences and realms, which is obviously the route he chose. Okay, they're intuitive. They can be popular, clever, impulsive, fidgety, nervous. Like I said, witty. Ruled by Mercury. So, really, really interesting. With this guy, again, the variety that you see in his writing. He did emphasize responsibility a lot. We see a lot of responsibility here with number 6 and a number 6 here. Responsibility and duty to mankind and to yourself and to your family and to your religion in his case. So a staunch, very staunch Christian. So interesting. Gift and talent, okay. Freedom. Travel. Change. These guys are dynamic. They're lively. They're the arbiters of change. They always, change other people when other people come into their lives. They make a big impact on other people. Let's do his karma number. Karma numbers. These are the numbers that are missing in the name, which are equal to a number 3 and a number 8. Okay. Karma numbers. Okay, these are the numbers that are underdeveloped or overdeveloped. A lot of people just think that they're purely weaknesses that you have that you need more experience with in life. However, because he's got a 3 as one of his core numbers, if you take that as his soul urge number, that can neutralize some of that number 3. So he obviously had enough creative communication and intellectual ability. The guy wrote a bunch of books. And he also wrote, I want to mention, he wrote a book called Either Or. Okay? That's all about choice. It's like, it's an either or, black or white scenario to Kierkegaard, because that's how life is to him, that you either choose to marry the girl or you choose to not marry the girl. There's no middle ground to him. It's just one or the other. So he wrote a book called Either Or. Huge book, is one of his most famous books. So that's interesting with the 5s here. Okay, you see that. The karma numbers. This 3 can be somewhat canceled by the fact that he's got a 3 for his core number. Okay, so not necessarily a big problem karma-wise with number 3. Number 8. Number 8 is money, power, and authority. Okay, you can almost see that this was, number 8 is ruled by Saturn. You can almost see that this was not a big problem for him necessarily either, or that this was one of the things that was overdeveloped in a past lifetime too, because his father, if you consider his father his past life, which I kind of consider parents sometimes your past life, because you are their genes passed down. So you were living in their genes, and now you're born. You are them in a lot of ways, and you are a continuation of because you're a continuation of their genes. So it's like you lived a past life through your parents in some ways. His parent, one of his parents, his father, ended up a rich man, which afforded Kierkegaard to be this cloistered writer that didn't have to really work to do a lot in his life. He could go to the university, go to school, and he could be just support himself just by writing, because he inherited so much money from his father. So 8 is money, power, and authority. It's Saturn, it's death. He saw a lot of death in his life. We didn't talk yet about his family karma number, which is number 9. Which is the humanitarian. But number 8, so there's something going on here with money, power, and authority. Maybe he lacked some personal power or lacked some authority in his own life, and it kind of forced him to try to create more of it himself. Number 8 is also ambitious. They're the leader. They're independent, so you see some independence here. Number 5s are kind of independent as well. Number 1 is definitely independent. Number 6 and 3, not quite as much. Man. So you see number 8 here. You can interpret it in a number of ways, but money, power, authority. These guys also kind of hide some of their sensitivity sometimes and don't express their emotions well. You can interpret this in a number of ways. But these guys are usually the CEOs, the managers, the big boss men, the guys that own companies, the guys that are in a position of power and have authority. Like I said, with him, I think you could kind of see that maybe you could interpret it with the death, with all the family members that died around him. His father died when he was, I think, 30-something as well. So, you know, the Grim Reaper, the Old Man, time, limitation, frustration. Okay, you have a lot of frustration with master numbers. Okay, 33. So frustration. So interesting. Number 9, the family karma number. Okay, this is just the last name, and it's equal to a number 9. Okay, karma again. What's overdeveloped or underdeveloped, or what you need to work on. You know, it's thought of. So his family is working on that humanitarianness. His family obviously has a lot of experience, I think, with this number 9, being that his south node is Aquarius. He obviously had some humanitarianness in him to just write for you know, publish all these things for all mankind to free their minds. So number 9 is duty, responsibility. Again, more responsibility. He felt dutiful and responsible to his father, to his religion, to himself. It's ruled by Mars. They can be very ambitious as well. They have to be careful because they can get very, very idealistic, almost too idealistic. They need to be a little more realistic sometimes. Number 8 is realistic. Number 5 is idealistic. Number 6 is idealistic. Okay. So he was an idealist mostly, I think. But number 9 is also a finishing number. It's the final phase. You could think about this like Pisces in the zodiac. It's finishing, it's completion. It's not relying on the material realm. The goal of number 9 is to actually detach and serve, and to not attach to things of this world. Okay, so you can see why his family was so religious in a lot of ways. Number 9 is the humanitarian. Churchyard, like I said in his name. It's finishing. You need to finish. It's the end of a cycle. Okay, it's the last freaking end of your soul's cycle, and then you're going to start over again with number 1 at some point down the line. So his family's already, number 9 includes all the numbers, so it has parts of all the numbers. Very wise. It's the sage. Okay, I understand this because I have a lot of 5s in my chart, and I have a number 9 family number as well. I understand a lot of this because of that. So most of the basic numbers there. Now let's do, I'm going to erase a little bit of this, so write anything down that you want. Let's do some of his pinnacles. I'm just going to erase a little bit so I have some room to do his pinnacles, which are basically the time frames of your life, the stages of your life. And he actually wrote a lot about stages of life. He thought that there were certain stages that you have to make a leap of faith to leap into the next stage. He was all about, you know, faith, and he has a lot of earth in his chart, you know, in his astrology chart. He's like 54% earth. So very down to earth, very I think it's about 54%. So where was I going with that? He, you know, faith. He kind of saw Christianity as, to try and prove that Christianity is objectively true is completely absurd. He thought that Christianity was actually pretty absurd, but that's the point of it. That if you could prove that it's true, if you could prove that the Bible is factual, then, you know, there's no point in having faith. And faith was the whole thing for him, you know, to actually to have faith and to leap into that religious life and commit to being religious and commit to believing in religion and in ethics and morals and values. You know, you see the other interesting thing about Taurus, you know, in number 5 with freedom, travel, and change, Taurus is all about freedom. Taurus rules the second house, which is freedom, its values, and its things like that. So he wrote about a lot about values and about freedom. So more interesting stuff here, man. It's always apparent. It always comes out, always accurate here, folks. Let's do the pinnacles. Hopefully you can see that. You got 5 here, 5 here, got 4 here. First pinnacle is a number 1. Okay, this is the first, depending on the person, it's usually the first anywhere from 20 to 30 years of your life. Somewhere in that range. It could be a little longer. It could be first 25 or first 35 years of your life. It's somewhere right in that range. For him, it was the first 31 years of his life. So 1844. He was 31. Okay, then you have 1853. He was 40. His next pinnacle is a 9, because 5 plus 4 is 9. I gotta try and write a little bit bigger for you. His next pinnacle was again a number 1, and then again a number 9. So 1919. Interesting. He actually only lived to. He actually only lived fully through the first and second pinnacle, because he died in 1855 as he was again entering this number 1. This is the end of this pinnacle is 1862. The end of this pinnacle, 1871. But then it goes onward. So he died at 42, right about here. Okay, so he's 40 here. The end of that pinnacle, 31 here. So first 31 years of his life, he was experiencing number 1. Okay, this is his first pinnacle. Okay. Pinnacle 1. Age 0 to 31. Use number 1. Okay, number 1 is independence, ego, leader, pioneer, etc. Okay, he's asked in this pinnacle to assert himself, to have courage, to take risks, to show who he really is, to be the leader, to not wait on other people, to just do his thing, be independent. And he did. He ended up publishing like 7 books before this pinnacle was even over. So he expressed his self. Okay, it's all about self. Number 1 is self. And he wrote a lot about self-actualization, basically creating yourself instead of being yourself and going with your nature. You know, because he doesn't believe quite as much in nature. He's more about nurture. You know, creating yourself is a task that each individual must undertake in order to become an authentic human being. Okay? You have to culture yourself. You have to strive to be your own person and be different from the crowd. He went against Hegel's philosophy, which was more about, you know, obedience to you know, your culture and your society, and you know, that you don't really exist unless there's other people around you and stuff like that. And you know, he was all about existence. He really struggled with, like, what does existence mean? And to him, you don't really exist until you choose, until you make a choice. So you could sum up his philosophy in, you know, I decide, therefore I exist. Because if you don't make if you just live like this haphazard life, just going along with what other people tell you to do, and just go with what you're conditioned to do, and you avoid your own dread and guilt and despair over the fact that you're completely free. And he talked about how you feel despair and you feel guilty and you feel, dread over the fact that you have this ultimate possibility and this ultimate freedom, and you're like, it's like a tyranny or a tyranny of choice. Like, you have to make a choice. You have to face the fact that you are free and it's up to you and you're responsible for who you're going to become, and really face yourself. So I hope that all makes sense. I mean, that's really what he was about. So he was going through that. That was forced upon him to go through that with the number 1 there. And then you go into the number 9, which he just detaches from humanity and completely serves. He's the outsider. He just serves through his writing. That's number 9. He's finishing all of his great work and all of the important things he has to say, and then he dies at 42 when he enters, this pinnacle. So, he did die young, but he actually lived a lot longer than he expected to live. He was kind of a frail person. He actually carried around an umbrella because the sunlight really bugged him his whole life. So he had a curvature of the spine, probably scoliosis, and, he was just kind of a frail guy. So the enormous output that he had was amazing, because he was so frail and sensitive and intuitive. So, pinnacles, all right? So, I'm going to erase this, and we're going to move on to some of his other numbers. Okay, we got the core numbers up there. Okay. I want to really talk about some of his challenge numbers because they're super interesting when it comes to him, and they make perfect sense. But before we jump totally into that, let's just do a few other things first. Okay, this is considered the minor expression, the first name and the last name only, which is equal to a number 8. That's interesting. Money, power, authority. Again, if you just do Soren, his first name, that's equal to a number 8 as well. So you see that he's got some number 8s there. Maybe he was lucky in inheriting money and power and some authority. His father was a very authoritarian figure. So you see it in his name here. His balance number, which are the initials, this is the number you go towards when you feel out of balance, is the number 4. Okay, number 4 is a lot like number 8. Okay, 2, 4, and 8 are similar. This is work, structure, and organization. Okay, very much the workaholic. He delved into his work when he felt out of balance. Obviously, that's what he did. He was a voracious writer. He worked his ass off to do what he needed to do and express himself. And it's apparent right there. He was obviously very organized enough to write all these books. And then you also, this is balance number. So when you're out of balance, this is what he went towards. Okay. Do his rational thought number. This is how he thinks, which was also equal to a number 4. Okay, this is his first name plus the day number. Okay, this is rational thought number. This is how he thought. He thought in an organized, structured, builder kind of mindset, obviously, and a workaholic kind of mindset. And, 4 is determined. It's efficient. 8 is also determined. Very determined, ruled by Saturn. 4 is ruled by Uranus. Okay, you see the little bit of humanitarianness there. Wanting to build this foundation for the future also with number 4. So, yeah, interesting, that he obviously has some ability for organization. You see all these 4s and 8s here. That's kind of interesting. You didn't see any of that in his other chart. His maturity number is equal to a number 11. Okay, this is the life path and the destiny, which is equal to a number 11. So you see another master number here. This is his maturity number. Okay, number 11 is the humanitarian. When he became mature, he became somewhat famous as well, in which he couldn't really endure too well, but number 11 is fame. It's the speaker. It's definitely a speaker, and he spoke through his books. It's definitely the humanitarian. It's very spiritual. It's very idealistic. It definitely has a pull towards leadership. But number 11 can be a tough vibration also. Being a master number, it can be tough to endure. You have to live up to very, very high standards. It's ruled by Libra. But it can also be, a higher intense vibration of number 2. Number 2 is cooperation, partnership. So you have some of this leadership quality with the double 1, but yet you also have this partnership quality. It's all about balance, trying to achieve balance in your personal, social, and spiritual life. You need to strive for balance in order to be more mature with this number 11. So interesting. Subconscious self number equal to a number 7. Okay. Number 7 is philosophy, it's spirituality, it's religion. So this is the least, but this is more on the unconscious levels. It's very much needing alone time to come up with, to find answers. It's associated with higher education, research. It's the seeker of answers in life. So this is his unconscious, his subconscious, where he's kind of coming from subconsciously. Whereas, his rational, his conscious mind is more working and structured and organized and laying foundations. This is more of a number this is a physical number. It's on the practical doing, action kind of plane, but yet it's very spiritual more than anything. Number 4 is physical and practical. Number 8 is emotional plane. Emotional plane. Physical, practical. Okay, number 11 you could put on the emotional plane as well. Emotions. And then this is physical, practical. So, you see a little more physical and practical qualities developed here, whereas it was mostly mental and emotional on his other main numbers. These are some secondary numbers. These aren't quite as important as all those other first numbers I put. So, what else? His nickname was Fork when he was a kid, because he threatened his dinner, apparently, or something at one point. I'm going to eat you, or I'm going to stab you, or I'm going to kill you, or something, to talking to his dinner, which is equal to a number 5. Okay, because you got 6, 6, 9, 2. That equals 5. Okay, you see another 5 there in his nickname. His social security number was probably a number 5, I would guess. interesting that his nickname came out to a number 5. I see 5 as the biggest thing. Again, you got the hidden passion, number 5. Most repeated number in his name is 5 and 1. Really about independence, really about freedom and travel and change and choice and indecision and making decisions. Now we're going to get into something very interesting. Okay, I want to do some of his challenges. Okay, I'm going to erase this. Almost done here, folks. I'm going to wrap it up. I think I got a quote or two to tell you guys about this awesome guy. You should really read some of his books and some of his stuff because, you know, if you believe in, you know, he would be more of a believer in free will and not necessarily fate. Whereas astrology, you might believe more in fate if you really research the hell out of astrology. This guy was kind of, you know, no, you make your own fate. It's all, you're totally free to be who you want to be. So, you know, whatever. It's challenge numbers. Okay? First challenge, you use the birth date. Okay. First challenge is equal to a 0. That's the most interesting thing on this chart as far as I'm concerned, which I'm going to talk about. Okay, this is usually the first 28-ish years of your life. Second challenge is equal to a number 1. Which is the next 28 years of your life. Third challenge is equal to a number 1. So he's got a lot of 1s here. Okay, independent guy. He didn't marry. He never had, probably had a girlfriend. I mean, he might have had 1 or 2 sexual experiences, but his Imam Coeli, being Scorpio, which is the house of sex, Imam Coeli is the least conscious part of you. Okay, he had this sexual depravity in some ways that, you know, because he was so religious, that sex equals sin. You know, he was just kind of obsessed with the fact that having sex is just sin, and, you know, and it's just not the right life to take. It's not the religious life, and it just, you know, screws you over. So that's interesting, but third challenge, which is the main challenge, which lasts your entire life. Okay, this is the biggest challenge. And then the fourth is another number 1, which is the next 28 years, roughly. So, but he really only lived these 2 challenges because he didn't live, you know, through all these. You know, he died at 42. Which is equal to a number 6, which is his destiny number. Kind of interesting. Okay, I'm doing this on a 6th day. The 0. Okay, this is the big thing here. Because these challenge numbers are, you know, these are the biggest challenges that you're going to go through in your life. You know, supposedly according to numerology. You know, the biggest thing is that you're going to be put in these situations in order to have to face these numbers. No matter what you do, you know, when you're born, these are already set in stone, and you're going to go through these challenges. You're going to be put in these situations of the vibration of the energies of these numbers and forced to be challenged by that and overcome it and face it and do what you can with that. So the 0 was the main challenge he lived through. First 28 years of his life, which is the most interesting because 0 is a hell of a lot like number 5. It's all about choice because 0 is nothingness. Okay, 0 is nothing. It's emptiness, right? There's no actual it's not an actual number really. It's not an actual vibration. You know, it's God. It's pure nothingness. It's the beginning. It's before all the other numbers. Yet it also includes all the numbers. Okay, it's wholeness. You know, the beginning, it really doesn't have an identity. And he was all about writing about, like, you could see that he struggled with having an identity, struggled to choose who he wanted to be. He wrote, Sartre, who followed him, who further developed his ideas in existentialism, actually wrote a book called Being and Nothingness. Okay, nothingness. Zero. You don't have anything within you. You have ultimate potential and freedom with a zero. Okay? It's pure potential, because there's nothing there. It's this circle, okay, from which all things spring forth. Okay? It's pure potential. So you have ultimate choice, because you're not stuck in one particular vibration. You have ultimate freedom, and that can be like, I don't know how to choose. I just, oftentimes people are thought that in this challenge that you don't necessarily have any particular challenge if you have a zero. I think more along the lines that you're actually receiving challenges from all sides, from all different numbers, from all the other numbers, to actually round you out as a person. Okay, circle, to make you more rounded and grounded, and kind of, if you hit an object from all sides, it's going to equal a sphere. That's why all the planets are spheres. All the bombardment of, among other reasons, the bombardment of asteroids and impacts, it rounds out the planet, right? So to become more rounded and whole, but with this zero, you're springing out of pure nothingness. You almost don't have an identity, and you have to make a choice. You have ultimate free will. So free will is forced upon you. You have more free will if the more zeros and the more number fives you have in your chart, because you're in those transition stages. That's a transition number. 0, number 5 is a transition number. Number 11, which we saw in there a couple times, is a transition number. Okay. Your pure spirit, your pure soul, you have, you're empty in a lot of ways. So you feel that obligation to, like, make yourself and create a self, because you almost have no self. You're just pure soul and spirit. This is the exact layout that I have in my chart. I completely understand this guy. I've struggled with identity. I'm sure you could probably see it in his astrology chart too, if you look into it deeply. But yeah, it's really, really interesting. Just pure potential. It's apparent. It's totally apparent in his writing that he felt this need to form a self, this need to form an identity out of nothingness. Okay, and that can be difficult. Most people just avoid that whole challenge and just, go along with what other people tell them they should be, and are just totally conditioned. They never find who they truly are. They never take that leap into the unknown and into, I'm going to make a conscious choice to be a writer. I'm going to make a conscious choice to be religious. I'm going to make a conscious choice to be, because that's such a heavy responsibility. Because if you fail, it's ultimately your fault. It's your problem. You fucked up because you chose it. If you let other people choose your life for you, then you avoid the responsibility. And that's, this is all Kierkegaard stuff. This is what his whole deal was. So I find that very fascinating, and I knew it was going to happen with Sartre too, because Sartre carried on his legacy in some ways. Same thing happened with Sartre, because Sartre was, first challenge was 3, second challenge 3, third challenge was 0, and fourth was 0. And again, this is Sartre. Third challenge is the challenge that lasts your entire life. Okay, he was challenged his whole life by this nothingness, this zero. Okay, this emptiness. So, interesting stuff. See what else I missed. It actually said on Wikipedia, his psychological work explored the emotions and feelings of individuals when faced with life choices. Yes, emotional plane, number 5. Okay, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. Come on. Okay, let me do a little quote from him. See what else I missed. You know, again, Taurus is I have. It's patient, conservative, domestic, sensual. You saw the domesticness from the sixes in there. Okay, we saw 2 6s in there. Sensual, thorough, stable, dependable. Stable and dependable. Number 4, we saw a couple 4s in there. That's stability, that's dependable. Number 6 is dependable as well. Practical, artistic, loyal. Okay, these are Taurus qualities. Okay, interesting. You saw the Leo there, which is proud. Leo is represented by the sun. We saw the 1s in there, which is the sun, which is Leo. Okay, his ascendant being Leo. Which, yeah, I mean, just interesting. Very, very interesting. You know, he had that Cancer moon. His emotions were very kind of geared towards being a family, home, you know, security kind of oriented, but he really went against that in some ways, you know, because he was like, you know, obviously he had something to say in life, and he said it, you know. He was challenged, and he overcame some of his issues. So here's his one of my favorite quotes. I don't think it's a direct quote, but it's basically the essence of what he said. It might be a direct quote, actually. I think it is, yeah. Our vague unease comes about by a despondency about the self, because acquiring a true self is a task, something that has to be worked at and developed. Without recognizing the importance of this task, we will never become authentic human beings. Okay? So, create yourself. You know, there's this conversation between being yourself and creating yourself. You wanna use a little bit of both, because you don't want to completely deny nature. In my mind, you know, we do come in with a lot of nature. If you study astrology a lot, then you believe a lot in a certain nature that you were born with, and some fate that you were born with. But you also have more free will if you're more conscious than the average person, and if you have a lot of 5s and 0s, and if you have a lot of 1s, because 1 is associated with willpower. He wrote a lot about willpower, that will is what's going to get you to create that self. So, hope you guys enjoyed it. Study some Kierkegaard, because it's interesting stuff. He's got some great quotes. He was a Danish philosopher of the 1800s. Check out Existentialism. Check out my links in the description. I have some t-shirts about Kierkegaard and some philosophical and spiritual and scientific kind of t-shirts you might want to check out in the link in the description below. Like and subscribe, because then you'll get updates on each video we do. You'll get an update in your email. And be free and make choices and stick to them and commit. And yeah, rise up. If you'd like a nutritional consultation or a numerology consultation or a numerology chart, also hit me up at collinchi@gmail.com. I will put the link in the description. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, rise.